In the peaceful town of Santo Velo, nestled between towering mountains and endless stretches of green fields, lived a hard-working farmer named Raimundo. Life in Santo Velo was simple, revolving around the land and its seasons. Raimundo was known far and wide, not just for his relentless dedication to farming but also for his humility and generosity. Even though he didn't have much, he never hesitated to lend a helping hand, whether it was sharing his harvest with a struggling neighbor or offering his tools to someone in need. Raimundo lived in a modest farmhouse with his loving wife Maria, and their 2 children, 12-year-old Pedro and 8-year-old Rosa. Their lives depended entirely on the crops Raimundo planted and harvested with his own hands. But as the years passed, the labor became harder. The same hoe and ox-drawn plow that had been enough in the past were no longer sufficient to meet the demands of the land. Each season seemed to take a greater toll on him. One day, while helping his father turn the soil, Pedro asked innocently, "Dad, why don't we buy a tractor? Our neighbors have one." Raimundo paused, wiped the sweat from his brow and sighed. "A tractor is expensive, son. But God willing, one day we'll have one." That simple question planted a seed in Raimundo's heart, a dream of owning a tractor that would lighten his workload, increase his farm's production, and create a brighter future for his family. From that moment on, he made a silent promise to himself. He would save every cent he could to make that dream come true. But the journey ahead was anything but easy. Determined, Raimundo began setting aside money in an old tin can, which he hid in the back of a cupboard. The family made sacrifices. Small luxuries were set aside, and they chose to live even more frugally than before. Maria, although she had dreams of renovating their home and buying new clothes for the children, supported Raimundo wholeheartedly. "It's a good plan, Raimundo," she said one evening as they sat by the dim lantern light. "A tractor will change everything." Years passed, marked by sweat, struggle, and unwavering perseverance. While other families in Santo Velo enjoyed town fairs or treated themselves to new belongings, Raimundo's family continued to live modestly, saving every possible coin. Even birthday presents for Pedro and Rosa became simple, handmade tokens of love rather than store-bought gifts. One day, during a town festival, Rosa tugged at her father's hand, her eyes lighting up at a candy vendor. "Dad, why didn't you buy me the candy I wanted?" Raimundo knelt down, looking into his daughter's innocent eyes with a gentle smile. "Because, my dear, we're saving for something much bigger. Candy is sweet for a moment, but what I'm working for will bring us good things for years to come." His dedication did not go unnoticed. Some neighbors doubted he would ever save enough, but others found themselves inspired by his unshakable determination. Raimundo never complained, not even in the hardest of times. He held on to hope, believing that perseverance would lead him to his goal. And then, after years of relentless effort, the day finally arrived. Raimundo had saved enough to buy a tractor. That morning, he woke before the sun rose, dressed in his best shirt. Though old and faded, it was still his most presentable. He tucked the envelope full of money safely into his pocket, climbed into his battered old truck, and set off for the city. The city was a completely different world from Santo Velo. The bustling streets, the towering buildings, and the constant noise made Raimundo feel small and out of place. But he gripped the steering wheel tightly, his determination outweighing his discomfort. When he arrived at the tractor dealership, its grandeur overwhelmed him. The showroom gleamed under bright lights, filled with massive modern machines that seemed almost surreal compared to the simple tools he was used to. Adjusting his straw hat, Raimundo stepped inside. Immediately, he noticed the glances thrown his way. His worn-out clothes, dusty boots, and calloused hands stood in stark contrast to the polished floors and well-dressed customers. Still, he walked forward with quiet confidence, approaching the first salesman he saw, a sharply dressed man named Claudio. "Good morning," Raimundo greeted. "I'm here to buy a tractor. Could you show me the models and prices?" Claudio barely concealed his smirk. "Good morning, sir. Are you sure you're in the right place?" Raimundo met his gaze steadily. "I am. I've worked hard to be here. Claudio exchanged amused glances with another employee before leading Raimundo to the section with the cheapest models. These are the more affordable options, he said, his tone laced with mock politeness. Perhaps something here fits your budget. Raimundo examined the tractors carefully, unbothered by Claudio's condescending attitude. Then he pointed to a sleek, high-performance model. And that one, he asked. How much does it cost? Claudio chuckled, shaking his head. That one. Sir, that's our most expensive model. Over 300,000 RI. Maybe we should look at something a little more reasonable. By now, other employees and customers had started to gather, whispering among themselves. But Raimundo didn't flinch. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the envelope, and placed it on the counter. Here's the money. You can count it. Silence fell over the room. Claudio's smug expression disappeared in an instant. He stared at the envelope, at a loss for words. Just then the store manager, Roberto, noticed the commotion and stepped in. What's happening here? He asked, his voice firm. Raimundo turned to him calmly. I came to buy a tractor. But it seems I wasn't taken seriously. Roberto's face darkened as he glanced at Claudio. This is unacceptable. Then, addressing Raimundo with sincerity, he added, I'll handle your purchase personally. As they finalized the transaction, Roberto apologized profusely. But Raimundo remained gracious. I'm not here to humiliate anyone, he said, but I hope this serves as a lesson. Never judge a person by their appearance. A man's worth is in his character, not in his clothes or his money. Before leaving, Raimundo requested to speak with Claudio one last time. The embarrassed salesman hesitated before stepping forward. Raimundo looked him in the eyes and said, I hope today taught you something valuable. Respect costs nothing, but it's worth everything. Treat everyone with kindness. You never know the sacrifices they've made to stand where they are. With the new tractor secured, Raimundo returned to Santo Velo, where his family and neighbors welcomed him with joyous celebrations. The machine transformed his farm, allowing him to produce more crops and even help fellow farmers in need. His story spread throughout the region, inspiring many, including the dealership, which later featured him in a campaign about perseverance and humility. As for Claudio, he never made the mistake of judging another customer by their appearance again. And Raimundo, he continued to live simply but with an even greater sense of purpose, proving that true wealth isn't measured by material things but by the kindness we show, the hard work we put in, and the dreams we chase with all our heart.